With over 5,000 credit unions and 4,000 banks, no wonder it is so hard to figure out which financial institution that you want to use for your financial needs and where you want your money to go. So in today's video, guys, that's what we're going to talk about. Which financial institution is going to be right for you on Starr Knows Credit. Welcome or welcome back to the channel. My name is Starr Carter, and on this channel I talk personal financial education. So if that sounds like it's something that you might be interested in, please consider being a subscriber. Make sure you guys are cutting on your notifications and give this video a thumbs up. That way other people get to see it that might need to see this information as well. Thank you so much again, and let's get on in today's video. As I was saying in the intro of the video, there are so many choices right now that you could choose from when it comes to your banking and where your money is going. You got national banks, you got community banks, you got regional banks, you got your credit unions, you got your fintech companies, you got your digital wallets. It is so many things, and it could just be completely mind-blowing with all the different options. So I'm going to help you today narrow that search down to your top choices of financial institutions. So let's go ahead, let's get a pen and a paper out so we can get into it. There is a lot to pick from even in your area. So credit unions, your national banks, your regional banks. So national banks would be your Bank of America, it would be your Chase, it would be your PNC banks, it would be the really big ones like the $1 trillion, multi-billion dollar banks. Those are your big national banks, and they're national because they're everywhere. You can find a Bank of America or Wells Fargo, you can find a Chase in most major cities and even in some little counties. So those are your national banks that have ATMs everywhere. Those are national banks. Your regional banks are the ones that you might only see in your area. Like in South Carolina, I could tell the ones that are just South Carolina based because I only see them in South Carolina. So those usually like your regional banks. And even credit unions. Credit unions can be community or regional. So you have some credit unions that are only in a specific area, only in a specific town, because they originated from maybe a plant or some type of factory or some type of medical system, and that might be their own particular credit union, their own particular community bank that's right there in your area, and they're nowhere else. Then you have your online banking institutions like your Capital One, you have American Express. There's a lot of different online banks, and all banks that are online are not created equal. So I don't want you to think that, okay, if it's online, it's the same thing. Not all of them are created equal. So I have a list, like I was saying, you got your Capital One, your American Express, your Ally banks, your SoFi, even Discover Bank. So there's a lot of online banks that are actually banks. They may not have a brick and mortar for you to actually go into. Now Capital One, depending on where you live at, there are some brick and mortar Capital One bank ones, but some of the other ones that I mentioned, they may not have an actual brick and mortar where you can actually walk into and do business with. Another example of an online bank is a neobank. So neobanks are like your fintech company. So that's your Chime. Also SoFi also falls into that. You will think about your Upgrade, your Wise. I got my list down here. Green Dots, your Go-To banks, those type of things. Those are your neobanks. Those are your fintech companies. So these are backed by other banks, or they could be big enough to be their own bank, but these are fintech companies. Like I said, Chime, think about those type of things. Now these are definitely online, and they do not have any physical locations that you can actually walk into. These are completely online. Now let's think about your digital wallets. We're talking about Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, Samsung Wallet. You got your Cash App, your Venmo, your PayPals, those type of things. These are your digital wallets. Now you want to be very careful with digital wallets because a lot of these are not FDIC insured because they're not actual bank accounts. So I know a lot of people like to keep their money in Cash App. You don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you actually keeping your money inside of your financial institution that is actually hooked to, because if somebody was to steal your money out of your Cash App is not FDIC insured, so they do not have to give you your money back. The financial institution is not on the hook for your money either, because you're using Cash App or whatever digital wallet as your go-between, like your third party, so they're not on the hook for it either. So you want to be very careful about that. So when you have a ton of options, like I just mentioned, it could be very hard to narrow that search down. So the easiest way that I found to narrow it down is to think about what your financial needs are now and some of your financial goals for the future, okay? So let me give you an example. When I got my first account, my grandmother took me to Nations Bank because that's what she had her account at, and it eventually became Bank of America here in the region that I'm in. And so it was kind of a no-brainer for me because A, my grandmother already had an account there, and B, it was right next door to the Burger King that I worked at. So I didn't have to like go that far to actually do my banking. And because I was new to it, I got my job when I was 16. I was like, okay, I was kind of, I was really nervous about it. So when I got my first paycheck, and this is before direct deposit, guys, I got my first paycheck, I walked right next door, put it into my account. This is before debit cards. This is, like I said, this is before direct deposit. I had just got a little ATM card and I got a book of checks. So checks was a really big thing back then. I didn't know anything about balancing a checkbook. I didn't know anything about checks and writing checks and none of that kind of stuff. I just know I needed to have somewhere to cash my check. So for the longest, I worked with just cash and I didn't really leave a lot of money in there. That was my first account because I didn't have any other goals at that time. But as I got older and I said, well, I want to buy a home. I also want to, eventually get my car. So when I got my first car that I actually financed, it was through a buy here, pay here place that my grandmother took me to. But when I actually got a car that was financed through a bank, I didn't even use my bank. When I went to the dealership, they got me a loan with another bank that was actually in my town, but I didn't have the thought or even the knowledge to know that, hey, you already banked with Bank of America. I should have went to them and got a pre-approval before I even went car shopping. But that wasn't on my radar. And of course, my grandmother and mother, they didn't really know that much about, finances to even teach me about that themselves. So, hindsight is always 20/20. So if I had a knew back then that I should have been going to my primary institution that was getting my money every time I got paid, because I was with Bank of America for a very long time before I even got an account with the credit union that I went to work for in 2007. I never thought about it. I never even got a credit card with them. I never did any other business with them other than just putting in my money in that account every time I got paid. So I wasn't thinking about my future needs once I was no longer a teenager. When I became a young adult, I became a parent when I was 23. So none of those type of things were on my radar when I picked that account. I was just going by with my grandma took me because that's who she had her account with. So I would say first, make a list of all the financial institutions that's in your immediate area, right in your area that's kind of close to where you live or close to where you work. Make a list of all of those financial institutions so that you can narrow that search down, because I am a big stickler for going inside of a financial institution and also forging that relationship. I am big on relationship banking because relationships with bankers and with tellers and all those type of things, and them getting to know you and you getting to know them, those are a lot of people that will help you whenever it's time for you need lending, okay? So I'm all about having an account where you can actually go inside of a branch. And even if you don't want to go in there all the time, have a drive-through or some way that you can do business that not just strictly online. I'm not opposed to online banks because those are a thing, but my main primary institution, I want it to be somewhere that I can actually walk into an actual financial institution and sit down. If I need to sit down and talk to somebody about a loan, about a car, about a home mortgage, whatever, I want that to be an option. So think about your needs. What are you going to need going forward? Even if you don't need it right now, you might not be old enough or your life might have already life past that. What are your needs right now and what are your future needs? And that's what you should think about when you're thinking about a financial institution. Now, once you establish what your needs are and you have wrote down all the different financial institutions that's in your immediate area, now it's time to do the research. Once you know the things that you're going to want to do, then you need to be looking on these people's websites and seeing what all do they offer. So are you going to, like I said, are you going to want to get your first car or refinance a car, or get your first home or refinancing a home, or you might want to get a home equity loan, or you may want to start a business. So do this do these banks that you wrote down or credit unions that you wrote down, do they actually have those accounts when you want them? You might want to start investing, so you might want to look into a money market account. Do they have money market accounts? You want to look and see if they have people there that can help you invest. I know, like the last bank I worked at, they had Edward Jones right there on the premises, so you might want to look into that too. You might want to look and see if they have financial advisors at that particular bank or credit union that you are looking at. So those are some of your needs and some of your goals that you may have. Like I said, you might not have them now, but you might have those in the future. You may not already have kids, but if that's your plan to have kids, you want to make sure that they offer kids accounts that you can start when they're a baby, and they might can have that account all the way up until they are teenagers and have their first job. So it's a lot of different things that you want to look at when you're looking at getting accounts. CDs, IRAs, it's all these different accounts that you can have right at your actual financial institution, but you got to know what your needs are, and you got to know what they offer in your area, because like I said, you want to have at least one bank that you can walk in and let that be your primary bank that you want to do all your particular financial big ticket item business with, because like I said, I am a proponent of you walking in somewhere and having that relationship. Then once you pick your primary institution that's in your area, they check all your boxes of what your financial needs is. You also need to look at what does it cost to do business with them. So do they have free accounts? Because I don't like accounts that make you jump through all kind of hoops for them to be free. I want free to be free. Okay, I don't want to keep up with if I'm keeping a minimum balance so that it'll be free, and if it drops below, then I got to pay $5. No, I want free to be free. Okay, so looking for accounts that are free that will also give you everything you need. Online banking, if you like to use an app, if you're an app person, you want something that has the online banking feature. You want someone that has like a 24/7 ATM or 24/7 access to your money on a online banking feature. So those are some of the things that you want to look for. But again, you want to look for them to have more free accounts. And if they do have accounts that charge, they usually are the accounts where you're putting in a lot of money, and then you're usually getting a higher interest rate. Like some of the older accounts for older people, they usually come with a fee if they drop below a certain amount of money, because usually if you're older, you have more money than if you're younger. So it's just some of those type of things that you can look for. But I like accounts that are free, and that's it, okay? Because my checking account is my checking account. I'm not doing anything extra. Savings is different, but my checking is my checking account. So money is constantly going in and out as I'm paying bills, doing other stuff, whatever. I'm not trying to keep up with a minimum. I remember one time when I had an account with Bank of America, and the account that I originally had, it switched over to some teller checking account. I didn't know what the world it was. But anyway, basically what the account was, it was an account that I could only use at the ATM. So if I needed to put money into the account, I had to put money inside of the ATM. So one time I went to the branch, and there was a line out of this world at the ATM, but there was hardly anybody in the drive-thru. So I pull up to the teller window, and I hand her my deposit. She gives me my receipt, and I go on about my business. So the next thing I know, I got like an $8 charge, and so I call up customer service. I'm like, I just saw I got an $8 charge. What's this charge is about? It's like, oh, you got a teller checking account, so you can't go and make a deposit inside or in the drive-thru. You have to do all your banking at the ATM. And I was like, that's stupid. When did I sign up for that? And it wasn't that I signed up for it. It was like that original account that I had, because I did a lot of my banking at the ATM. You know, when I was young, they figured that that would be a better account for me. So the account that I had, they no longer offered it, and they just put me into this account that, because I never really went inside of the branch, they figured that, okay, she doesn't need to have a checking account for that. She could be an ATM checking account. But that should have been something that I got to pick and not them pick for me, and then charge me a fee that I had no idea that it was about. So me telling you this story is to tell you, make sure that when you're picking an account, once you find your institution and you're looking at the accounts they offer, look at the fine print and make sure that the checking account that you're picking, the savings accounts that you're picking, money market, CDs, whatever, know what those fees are up front. And if you don't understand something, before you even open up these accounts, go in and talk to somebody if you can. If you can't go in and talk to somebody, give them a call on their customer service line and say, hey, I'm on your website. I'm looking at this. I'm not sure. I just want to make sure that this account is free or if there is a charge. How does this work? And I know a lot of the younger people like to use Chime, and they like to use, the Cash App and the Venmo because they got these really nice little cards that come with it or whatever. And all that is really cute. But when we're talking about your real money, so you want to make sure that you have a real financial institution. I'm not opposed to those accounts, but I want you to have a real financial institution, whether it's online or you actually walking into a branch. Now, I love, like I said, I'm a proponent for everybody having a relationship with a real bank, because if you have a Chime account, if you have Cash App, these people are not lending to you when it's time for you to get your first car, when you're trying to get a good interest rate on a car, when you're trying to get your first home, when you're trying to do all those life goal things that you're going to have to do eventually. You might not be ready for it now, but you're going to eventually get to that stage in life, and you won't be able to do that. And I don't want you to waste all that relationship building time on something that cannot give you that relationship when you need it. So I'd rather for you to go ahead, get your first institution right in your area where you're at right now, and that way you're growing with that institution. And you can always have these other online banks. There's nothing wrong with that. But I want you to have a primary. I want you to have one that you do a lot of your business with, so when those life things come up, you have somebody already in your pocket. I've talked to several people when I'm doing client consultation that has been members at credit unions for 20 and 30 and 40 years. And because they seen a Navy Fed video that I put out or some other content creator here on YouTube put out, they drop that whole relationship and go run over here to Navy Fed. And I'm like, why? You've already built a 30-year relationship over here. Why are you going over here where they don't even know anything about you? You're going to have to jump through more hoops over here than you would over here. And I can't tell you how many clients that I talked to that didn't realize that, went to the bank they were already banking with and got whatever it was that they needed. Whether that was a high limit credit card, a refinance on a car that they had somewhere else, refinance on a home. They didn't even think about the institution that they were already with when they jumped ship to go to Navy Fed, because everybody's talking about Navy Fed being a house of high limits. That doesn't matter if you didn't have a relationship that you have forged with them for years and years and years, right? Not saying that you got to be in that credit union for years and years for them to help you, but think about the one that you've already had a relationship with the longest. So this is for my ones that have had, accounts for a very long time, with ones that, either their partner used to work there or they used to work there and they got a credit union account. Those are things you want to think about. So now that I kind of broke everything down and told you, okay, what to look for in your financial institution. So what is going to be your next step? Let me know in the comments if you don't already have an account, or if you have an account and that account is not serving all of your financial needs. What are you going to do going forward so that you have the best financial institution for your money? Because you want your money to be in the best place where it can work for you and not for that actual institution. You want to be able to use your account whenever you need it. So location, think about your locations of where these branches are. Think about all the things that you need as a customer of that financial institution before you actually put your money in there. Don't just get one because we recommend it, but actually look at it and make sure that it's going to fit your financial needs. I really do appreciate all the love, guys. Make sure y'all leave me some comments. Give this video a thumbs up if it helped you, and I'll see you in the next video.